Before I get into today's topic within reincarnation, I would like to give an example of how this actually plays out, how reincarnation plays out in my daily life. Remember that with reincarnation, you are also dealing with aspects of deja vu, the Mandela effect, past lives experiences, of course, tarot card readings, fortune telling, and so on and so forth. And the reason why I bring this up is, as I have stated before, you cannot foresee nor foretell the future unless that future has already once occurred. Okay? Now, let's go a little bit further into the factor of fortune telling. Okay? And I want you to stick with me as I give a very strong example, once again, over how tarot cards and fortune telling plays a major part in my life today, and how it has been for quite a few years now. A while back, I'll just say at some point last year, I had one of my neighbors move away. While she was here, this was a woman that she underwent a couple of hip surgeries, knee surgery. 9 years older than myself. We had quite a friendship that had kicked off, and there was a point in time to where I was discussing a lot of my topics of interest with this woman, and at one point I came across a reading that was done by the channel Sawney Healing, such as seen right here. Now then, many months ago, this channel had done a hot wax reading. Within one portion of this reading, there were some names that were mentioned. The first name that was mentioned, lo and behold, was the name of this woman that once was my neighbor. And it kind of perked my ears. As the reading continued, more names were mentioned. Now mind you, this woman had 3 children. They are all adults now. 2 of the 3 children were named within this reading, as well as her own name. I immediately went to her to alert her of this reading, because it was for her but being generated through me to get her attention. Now then, last night, through another channel, and I love this woman dearly, in my own way, of course, as well as her daughter. At one point in time, I nicknamed them the Dynamic Duo. Both of them tarot card readers. Frankie has been up on my story for years now. And here is just another example of what I'm speaking. Now there's one word within that title of that video. I no longer really have to watch her videos. All I have to do is look at her titles and know whether they are geared for me or not, whether they are talking of my story or not, and she has been up on my story for a very long time. And, well, if you've been following along with my channel, or if you personally know me, there is one word, Captain. That has been my nickname for the longest time. Now, if that does not wake some of you people up out there at how serious this is, what I am bringing about to you, well, I would stop watching now, because you're just not getting it. Especially if you've been a long time viewer of mine. Now then, with that being seen and said, let's continue on with the intellectuals of the 20th century, which was the 1900s, which we have been away from for 24 years now. But here are some of the examples of these other intellectuals throughout the 1900s and their beliefs or their thoughts upon reincarnation. So within the 20th century, aka the 1900s once again, we find the idea of reincarnation attracting the mind of one of the West's most influential artists, Paul Gauguin, whatever, who during his final years in Tahiti wrote that when the physical organism breaks up, the soul survives. It then takes on another body, Gauguin wrote, and sorry about the names. Yeah, I'm not good with names, but many others claim the same. Okay, the soul survives. It then takes on another body, Gauguin wrote, degrading or debating or elevating according to merit or demerit. The artist believed that the idea of continued rebirth had first been taught in the West by Pythagoras, who learned it from the sages of ancient India. U.S. auto magnate Henry Ford once told a newspaper interviewer, "I adopted the theory of reincarnation when I was 26, Ford said. Genius is experience. Some seem to think that it is a gift or talent, but it is the fruit of long experience in many lives." In a similar fashion, U.S. General George S. Patton believed that he had acquired his military skills on ancient battlefields. Reincarnation is a recurring theme in Ulysses, by Irish novelist and poet James Royce. In one famous passage in this novel, Joyce's hero, Mr. Bloom, tells his wife, "Some people believe that we go on living in another body after death, that we lived before. They call it reincarnation, that we all lived before on Earth thousands of years ago or on some other planet. They say we have forgotten it. Some say they remember their past lives." Jack London made reincarnation the major theme of his novel, The Star Rover, in which the central character says, "I did not begin when I was born, nor when I was conceived. I have been growing, developing through incalculable myriads of millenniums. All my previous selves have their voices, echoes, promptings in me. Oh, incalculable times again shall I be born, and yet the stupid dolts about me think that by stretching my neck with a rope, they will make me cease." In his classic novel of the search for spiritual truth, Siddhartha, Nobel laureate Hermann Hesse wrote, "He saw all these forms and faces in 1,000 relationships to each other. None of them died, they only changed. Were always reborn, continually, had a new face, only time stood between one face and another. Numerous scientists and psychologists have believed in reincarnation as well. One of the greatest modern psychologists, Carl Jung, used the concept of eternal self that undergoes many births as a tool in his attempts to understand the deepest mysteries of the self and consciousness. I could well imagine that I might have lived in former centuries and there encountered questions I was not yet able to answer, that I had to be born again because I had not fulfilled the task that was given to me, Jung said. British biologist Thomas Huxley noted that the doctrine of transmigration was a means, constructing a plausible vindication of the ways of the cosmos to man, and warned that none but very nasty thinkers will reject it on the grounds of inherent absurdity. One of the leading figures in the field of psychoanalysis and human development, American psychoanalyst Erik Erikson, is convinced that reincarnation goes to the very core of every man's belief system. Let us face it, deep down, nobody in his right mind can visualize his own existence without assuming that he has always lived and will live hereafter, the author wrote. Mahatma Gandhi, one of the greatest political figures of modern times and the apostle of nonviolence, once explained how a practical understanding of reincarnation gave him hope for his dream world of peace. Gandhi said, I cannot think of permanent enmity between man, and believing as I do in the theory of rebirth. I live in the hope that if not in this birth, in some other birth, I shall be able to hug all of humanity in friendly embrace. In one of his most famous short stories, J.D. Salinger introduces Teddy, a precocious young boy who recalls his reincarnation experiences and speaks forthrightly about them. And I love this passage. It is so silly. All you do is get the heck out of your body when you die. My gosh, everybody's done it thousands of times. Just because they don't remember, it doesn't mean they haven't done it. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, hero of the novel by the same name, whom author Richard Bach described as that brilliant little fire that burns within us all, goes through a series of reincarnations that lead him from Earth to a heavenly world and back again, to enlighten the less fortunate gulls. One of Jonathan's mentors inquires, do you have any idea how many lives we must have gone through before we even got the first idea that there is more to life than eating or fighting or power in the flock? 1,000 lives, John, 10,000, and then another 100 lives until we began to learn that there is such a thing as perfection, and another 100 again to get the idea that our purpose for living is to find that perfection and show it forth. Nobel laureate Isaac Bashevis Singer often speaks of past lives, rebirth, and the immortality of the soul in his masterful short stories. There is no death. How can there be death if everything is part of the Godhead? The soul never dies and the body is never really alive. Now then, the word Godhead. You will be hearing that in future reference. Okay, if you're not aware of that term, Godhead, please look it up. And British poet laureate John Masefield, in his well-known poem about past and future lives, writes, I hold that when a person dies, his soul returns again to earth. Arrayed in some new flesh disguise, another mother gives him birth. With sturdier limbs and brighter brain, the old soul takes the road again. Musician, songwriter, and celebrated ex-Beatle George Harrison's serious thinking about reincarnation is revealed in his private thoughts on interpersonal relationships. Friends are all souls that we've known in other lives. We're drawn to each other. That's how I feel about friends. Even if I only have known them a day, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to wait until I have known them for 2 years because anyway, we must have met somewhere before, you know? Now, I find it highly ironic that I am reading here about George Harrison of the Beatles, and here today it was reported that, oh hey, the Beatles have a new music video that is out. And I'll leave that where that stands. Reincarnation is once again attracting the minds of intellectuals and the general public in the West. Films, novels, popular songs, and periodicals now treat reincarnation with ever-increasing frequency, and millions of Westerners have rapidly joined ranks with the billions of people, including Hindus, Buddhists, Taoists, and members of other faiths who have traditionally understood that life does not begin at birth nor end with death. But simple curiosity or belief is not sufficient. It is merely the first step in understanding the complete science of reincarnation, which includes knowledge of how to free oneself from the miserable cycle of birth and death. And that shall conclude it for today. Please come back as we will continue on.